The afternoon sun cast long, skeletal shadows from the telephone wires onto the gravel beside the tracks. The air was still, heavy with the scent of dust and dried rust. It was in this desolate in-between space that she lay, a calico mother cat, her fur matted with dirt and exhaustion, her sides heaving with shallow breaths. Abandoned, or perhaps simply lost in a world too vast for her small paws, she had found herself trapped on the raised bed of sharp stones, her body trembling with a weakness that went beyond hunger. Perhaps she had been searching for shelter, for her hidden kittens, or just a moment of respite. Now, paralysis born of sheer terror held her captive. A low, dissonant hum began to vibrate through the iron rails, a sound felt more than heard. It grew, steadily, into a distant rumble. The mother cat's ears flattened. Her wide, amber eyes, pools of primal fear, darted toward the sound. Instinct screamed at her to flee, but her body, spent and broken, refused the command. She tried to rise, her legs buckling beneath her, a silent mew of distress lost in the gathering roar. The rumble deepened into a distinct, rhythmic clatter. A train was coming, and it was coming fast. The world began to shake. Gravel danced a macabre jig. The whistle blew a long, piercing shriek that tore through the calm, a final verdict. The cat pressed herself into the ground, a small, doomed monument of fur and fear. The blinding light of the locomotive's headlamp swept around the distant bend, illuminating her crumpled form. Time, which had been slow, now accelerated to a horrifying speed. The thunder was deafening, the wind of its passage began to pull at her. At that precise moment, a man was taking a shortcut home, his mind occupied by the mundane ledger of daily life. The shriek of the whistle jerked him to attention. His gaze followed the track, and there, framed in the apocalyptic glare of the train's light, he saw her. A flash of calico against the gray. A life, reduced to a speck before the roaring steel behemoth. There was no time for complex thought. No risk assessment, no internal debate. There was only a heart-rending sight and a surge of empathetic action that bypassed all logic. He didn't see a stray animal, he saw a mother, he saw terror, he saw an injustice about to be sealed in metal and speed. With a shout that was swallowed by the noise, he launched himself forward. The ground vibrated violently under his feet. The engineer, seeing the sudden movement, blasted the horn again in a futile, desperate warning. The man's world narrowed to a tunnel, the cat, the tracks, the closing gap. He dove, not a graceful motion but a scrambling, desperate lunge, gravel biting into his palms and knees. The wind from the train whipped his clothes, the sound of physical wall. His hands closed around the small, trembling body. The cat, in her shock, didn't fight but went limp. In one continuous motion, he spun and threw himself backward, rolling down the shallow embankment, curling his body around his fragile rescue. The train passed with an apocalyptic roar, a blur of screaming metal, shaking earth, and a vacuum that pulled the air from their lungs. The force of it battered them, the noise was all-consuming. It lasted an eternity, and it lasted a second. Then, it was gone. The roar receded into a clatter, then a rumble, then a hum. The silence it left behind was ringing and profound, thick with the scent of hot iron and stirred dust. Coughing, the man uncurled. In the crook of his arm, the mother cat stirred. He set her down gently on the soft grass away from the tracks. She stood unsteadily, then looked up at him. The terror in her eyes was slowly receding, replaced by a dazed, profound confusion. She didn't run. She took a step, rubbed her cheek against his muddy boot, a tiny, seismic gesture of trust. A thank you in a language older than words. He sat there for a long while, his own heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. As the adrenaline bled away, he offered her water from his bottle, which she lapped at gratefully. Her purr, when it came, was a ragged, rusty sound, but it was the most beautiful music in that suddenly peaceful field. This was not the end of her story, but its second beginning. The kind man, whose own life was irrevocably changed, didn't walk away. He took her home, to warmth, to food, to a veterinary checkup. She was named Grace, for the unearned gift of life she'd been given. In the safety of his home, her true nature emerged, sweet, gentle, and motherly. Soon, it was discovered her rescue had been even more timely than imagined. weeks later, she gave birth to 4 healthy kittens in the security of a cozy blanket-lined nest, a life circle preserved because of one man's decisive compassion. The railway tracks remain, a place of transient danger. But they are also now a monument to a different kind of power, not the impersonal power of steel and speed, but the transformative power of a watching eye, a feeling heart, and a courageous hand. Grace and her kittens live as a daily reminder that hope often wears the disguise of chance, and that heroes are simply those who choose to act when the universe whispers, now or never. In that single second, suspended between loss and salvation, he chose to care, and in doing so, he didn't just save a cat, he rescued hope itself.